into our treasury coming from foreign sources. The American dream will soon be back and thriving like never before to restore competence and effectiveness to our federal government. My administration will establish the brand new Department of Government Efficiency. After years and years of illegal and unconstitutional federal efforts to restrict free expression, I will also sign an executive order to immediately stop all government censorship and bring back free speech to America. Never again will the immense power of the state be weaponized to persecute political opponents, something I know something about. We will not allow that to happen. It will not happen again. Under my leadership, we will restore fair, equal, and impartial justice under the constitutional rule of law. And we are going to bring law and order back to our cities. This week, I will also end the government policy of trying to socially engineer race and gender into every aspect of public and private life. We will forge a society that is colorblind and merit-based. As of today, it will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female. This week, I will reinstate any service members who were unjustly expelled from our military for objecting to the COVID vaccine mandate with full back pay. And I will sign an order to stop our warriors from being subjected to radical political theories and social experiments while on duty. It's going to end immediately. Our armed forces will be freed to focus on their sole mission, defeating America's enemies. Like in 2017, we will again build the strongest military the world has ever seen. We will measure our success not only by the battles we win, but also by the wars that we end, and perhaps most importantly, the wars we never get into. My proudest legacy will be that of a peacemaker and unifier. That's what I want to be, a peacemaker and a unifier. I'm pleased to say that as of yesterday, one day before I assumed office, the hostages in the Middle East are coming back home to their families. Thank you. America will reclaim its rightful place as the greatest, most powerful, most respected nation on earth, inspiring the awe and admiration of the entire world. A short time from now, we are going to be changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, and we will restore the name of a great president, William McKinley, to Mount McKinley, where it should be and where it belongs. President McKinley made our country very rich through tariffs and through talent. He was a natural businessman and gave Teddy Roosevelt the money for many of the great things he did, including the Panama Canal, which has foolishly been given to the country of Panama after the United States. The United States, I mean, think of this, spent more money than ever spent on a project before and lost 38,000 lives in the building of the Panama Canal. We have been treated very badly from this foolish gift that should have never been made. And Panama's promise to us has been broken. The purpose of our deal and the spirit of our treaty has been totally violated. American ships are being severely overcharged and not treated fairly in any way, shape, or form. And that includes the United States Navy. And above all, China is operating the Panama Canal. And we didn't give it to China, we gave it to Panama, and we're taking it back. Above all, my message to Americans today is that it is time for us to once again act with courage, vigor, and the vitality of history's greatest civilization. So as we liberate our nation, we will lead it to new heights of victory and success. We will not be deterred. Together, we will end the chronic disease epidemic and keep our children safe, healthy, and disease-free. The United States will once again consider itself a growing nation, one that increases our wealth, expands our territory, builds our cities, raises our expectations, and carries our flag into new and beautiful horizons. And we will pursue our manifest destiny into the stars, launching American astronauts to plant the stars and stripes on the planet Mars. Ambition is the lifeblood of a great nation. And right now, our nation is more ambitious than any other. There's no nation like our nation. Americans are explorers, builders, innovators, entrepreneurs, and pioneers. The spirit of the frontier is written into our hearts. The call of the next great adventure resounds from within our souls. Our American ancestors turned a small group of colonies on the edge of a vast continent into a mighty republic of the most extraordinary citizens on earth. No one comes close. Americans pushed thousands of miles through a rugged land of untamed wilderness. They crossed deserts, scaled mountains, braved untold dangers, won the Wild West, ended slavery, rescued millions from tyranny, lifted billions from poverty, harnessed electricity, split the atom, launched mankind into the heavens, and put the universe of human knowledge into the palm of the human hand. If we work together, there is nothing we cannot do and no dream we cannot achieve. Many people thought it was impossible for me to stage such a historic political comeback. But as you see today, here I am. The American people have spoken. I stand before you now as proof that you should never believe that something is impossible to do. In America, the impossible is what we do best. From New York to Los Angeles, from Philadelphia to Phoenix, from Chicago to Miami, from Houston to right here in Washington, D.C., our country was forged and built by the generations of patriots who gave everything they had for our rights and for our freedom. They were farmers and soldiers, cowboys and factory workers, steel workers and coal miners, police officers and pioneers who pushed onward, marched forward, and let no obstacle defeat their spirit or their pride. Together, they laid down the railroads, raised up the skyscrapers, built great highways, won 2 world wars, defeated fascism and communism, and triumphed over every single challenge that they faced. After all we have been through together, we stand on the verge of the 4 greatest years in American history. With your help, we will restore America's promise, and we will rebuild the nation that we love, and we love it so much. We are one people, one family, and one glorious nation under God. So to every parent who dreams for their child, and every child who dreams for their future, I am with you, I will fight for you, and I will win for you. We're going to win like never before. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. In recent years, our nation has suffered greatly, but we are going to bring it back and make it great again, greater than ever before. We will be a nation like no other, full of compassion, courage, and exceptionalism. Our power will stop all wars and bring a new spirit of unity to a world that has been angry, violent, and totally unpredictable. America will be respected again and admired again, including by people of religion, faith, and goodwill. We will be prosperous. We will be proud. We will be strong, and we will win like never before. We will not be conquered. We will not be intimidated. We will not be broken, and we will not fail. From this day on, the United States of America will be a free, sovereign, and independent nation. We will stand bravely. We will live proudly. We will dream boldly, and nothing will stand in our way because we are Americans. The future is ours, and our golden age has just begun. Thank you. God bless America. Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Please welcome the Armed Forces Chorus and Carrie Underwood.
COVID hits. There's controversies with the second election. President Biden comes in, and then obviously there was a lot of legal issues, and then 2 assassination attempts against the president, and then to I think win overwhelmingly. I think he's got a pretty good mandate. So I think in a way, I think him not having 2 consecutive terms actually has given, I think, the president a lot of time, a lot more momentum. Where he would have won the second time, we would have continued. But I think those 4 years of being out of office, I think he evolved politically more. So I think he's got a stronger mandate than he did the first time he was elected.
Now, we just heard President Trump speaking. He pretty much echoed some sentiments he passed yesterday during his victory speech, where he talked about how he's looking to use from day one, which is right now, actually, to change a lot of policies, including the DEI, which is the diversity, equity, inclusion. He talked about increasing jobs. He talked about strengthening the nation's economy, and most importantly, for a lot of Americans, securing the border. How possible is this in terms of considering the fact that he only has 1 term left?
Well, it's interesting. When President Trump was elected the first time, it took about almost 50 days to get his cabinet put into place. Senator Thune this morning, I heard him was talking about when President Obama was elected, they were able to get cabinet approved in 18 days. So I think you're going to see the president's cabinet come quickly together. You're going to see many announcements, for instance, like the Assistant Secretary of State for Africa and other positions announced quickly. So I think, like I said, they've had 4 years, 4+ years to kind of get organized. And I think he's got more experience and there's a more mature team around the president today.
Now, a lot of these policies are aimed towards one thing, and this seems to be the theme of it: make America great again.
Correct.
A lot of people, as you mentioned, this is not his first term in office. I expect Trump to hit the ground running. How possible is this, considering the fact that there's still a lot to unwind and a lot to redo and a lot to fix, in their opinion?
Well, I heard this morning there'll be over, by the time the week is over, there'll be 200 executive orders, 50 which are legally binding. Some of them are kind of symbolic. But I think the 2 major ones are securing the border, and it'll be the drill baby drill, the energy policy. I think those are the 2 core issues. And like I said, I think once the cabinet gets appointed and confirmed, the president will be able to do a lot of things. So like I said, Marco Rubio today and John Ratcliffe should be confirmed this afternoon. And I'm sure the president will be hosting them. And like I said, all week the president will be receiving calls from many world leaders.
Right.
So, yeah.
Now, most importantly for the everyday person, the everyday American, when they look at Trump's first 100 days in office, what can they expect that is realistic in terms of changing their everyday lives?
Well, look, the president is not known for sleeping a lot, right? He thrives on 4 to 6 hours, so he's quite a beast in terms of good energy. I think you're going to see some interesting things. I think for the average worker who works, whether you work at a casino, if you work in a coffee shop, I think one of the things the president is going to push hard is no tax on tips. So they can make an announcement, even though it's not legal, and they'll say, hey, retro, whatever day, any tips you earn, there'll be no taxes on it. So I think small gestures like that will be seen. So if you're a working person, then your livelihood depends on tips. And guess what? You get to keep 25% more of your money, not having to worry. So I think you'll see lots of small things. Government's large. It's not quite as easy to move it or disrupt it, but I do think you'll see some common sense moves happening.
Now, to speak on, of course, one of the things he touched on is that he as the president of the United States, needs to unify the nation. On Saturday, we had thousands of people here in Washington, D.C. speaking their concerns, a lot of them highlighting that they really were dissatisfied with his return to power. How does he go about not only serving his base, but unifying the nation and bringing those?
Yeah, I mean, that's the great thing about the United States, right? I mean, most elections are pretty close. If you look, I think it was basically 47 to 53 or 48 to 52. So really, most elections won in the U.S. are by undecided voters. And I think, like I said, I think President Trump has really mellowed a lot. I think the assassination attempts on him, I mean, when someone tries to kill you, you do have to have an epiphany about life and being more kind. So I do think you'll see there's a lot of rhetoric, but I do think you'll see an effort really to try to find a way to repair a lot of the grief, because I think nobody likes to be disliked, and the president likes to be liked. So I think the first 100 days they're going to try to implement some kind of common sense policies. But like I said, you still have to work with Congress and whatnot. So it will take some time.
Now, well, you touched on the fact that Congress and the other bodies of legislation, a lot of them favor Trump.
Yeah.
So how easy would it be for him to pass a lot of policies, laws that would, I guess, match a lot of his campaign promises?
I mean, when Trump was elected the first time, they didn't have the majority the whole time.
Mhm.
They have the House and the Senate now.
Mhm.
But even in the House, it's a very slim margin. I guess only maybe four votes there.
Mhm.
And in the Senate, many times, some votes require 60 votes,
Mhm.
which the Republicans don't have. So, I mean, I think, and you look at the leadership of the Speaker and Senator Thune, I think they're very well respected by their colleagues on the Democratic side.
Mhm.
So I think not everybody will get what they want, but I think you'll see this happen very soon because our budget, the U.S. budget was only approved for, I think, last 60 days.
Mhm.
So this is going to be a real test for President Trump and the Democrats to see can they compromise on raising that limit and approving a budget that is going to go beyond 60 days.
Now, let's look at the international audience. Once again, Trump has campaigned on the Make America Great Again rhetoric.
Yeah.
Where does this fit international relations?
I mean, look, we're talking to an African audience. I think one of the first places you'll see, and I've talked to a lot of the president's staff, is just in Uganda. There's the issue of LGBT issues there.
Mhm.
And, the Ugandans are heavily sanctioned. The Speaker was sanctioned. And I think you will see those sanctions rolled back. Obviously, there's going to be some dialogue there.
Mhm.
But I think if they're going to impose sanctions, it'll be for a different level of we'll say, value. So I think in terms of foreign policy, obviously it'll be America first. It'll be very transactional.
Mhm.
But I do think you will see some, definitely, we'll say, just beyond soft power. I think you'll see some, for instance, with Russia and
Mhm.
the Israel-Hamas situation.
You talked about that it being transactional, and you brought up Africa.
Yeah.
I've spoken to a lot of African leaders, and one of their biggest demands, if I were to use that phrase, when it comes to relations with the international audience, America included, is they feel as though it's time for partnership and not aid. How does that fit into what President Trump is looking to implement, especially when he's looking at international relations?
Yeah, I think, we have most people don't know this, but the United States has a sovereign wealth fund. We call it DFC. And this is our major way of funding major projects. So if we look at Africa, we have a project known as the Lobito Corridor.
Yes.
It involves Congo, Angola,
Yes.
Zambia,
Yes.
and that's the idea is to get those strategic critical minerals out, maybe have the Angolans add value to oil and gas. So I think in terms of business, I think there's going to be a lot of inclination towards those projects where they're financing and trying to encourage U.S. companies to do business in Africa.
Now, of course, once again, under Biden, we saw a lot of attempts towards strengthening relations with the continent. Do you think that President Trump would want to continue the same, if not do better?
Well, actually, something interesting. So G20 will take place in South Africa this year.
Yes.
I would say South Africans probably have a kind of an awkward situation
Mhm.
vis-a-vis the U.S. I mean, the relations with Russia,
Mhm.
the South African ambassador to the U.S. has tweeted heavily some very nasty things about President Trump. So the question is, will President Trump go to South Africa and be involved with G20?
Mhm.
I think the Congress just finished, the 118th Congress. They approved the African American Summit. They budgeted $28 million for that. Those are funds that are available. The question is, what will be the format that President Trump uses to engage in business? So, as you know, we hosted the summit under President Biden.
Yes.
And those funds are available for another summit. So the question is, how does President Trump engage with the African community? And I think it'll be mostly, I think it'll be security, and it'll be, I think, mostly business.
I want to take it back to hot issues that you touched on early on, which is the wars that are happening across the world. We've got the wars in Eastern Europe between Russia and Ukraine, and of course, we've got the war in the Middle East between Israel and Hamas. America is part and parcel of both in terms of being the mediator for peace. Where does this place President Donald Trump looking at the strides that President Biden made towards resolving these issues?
Look, when we look at Ukraine and Russia, it's going to be a complicated situation. Look, the Ukrainians had basically a unlimited credit card. The United States was very generous in terms of funding. So I think there was a lot of cohesiveness with President Zelensky and President Biden's team. I think President Zelensky has to work hard to really ingratiate himself with Team Trump, meaning work with Senator Rubio, work with John Ratcliffe. I think President Trump is a very people-oriented person. He likes to gravitate. Like, for instance, he and President Macron get along very well. It's just kind of awkward between
Yes,
those friends.
recently and yes.
But that cult of personality goes a long way. And I think if President Zelensky can surround himself with the right people and advise them, I think that Ukrainians will will fare well. I mean, obviously, President Trump wants to see the war end, and I'm sure Vladimir Putin obviously doesn't want to seem weak as capitulating. But I think if everyone kind of focuses on some compromise, I think that we will see peace, at least in Russia and Ukraine. I think it may take a few months, but I think it's not going to happen.
And then in the Middle East, of course, we just saw the both President Biden and, of course, now President Trump did play a role in the recently announced ceasefire. What does it look like in terms of the fact that it now has to be enforced by President Trump?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, it started with these Abraham Accords under President Trump last time. Obviously, what happened on October 7th in Israel, obviously stunned Israel. And I think President Trump was pretty clear, at least if the American hostages were returned soon, there were going to be serious problems. So I think you're going to see some changes. Under the Biden administration, the Qataris were very involved, obviously.
Yes,
I think with President Trump, you will see a more Saudi, Emirati sphere. I mean, the Qataris will still be relevant, but I think there was a slight bias towards one side, where the Biden folks work very closely with the Qataris. So it'll be very interesting to see how that realignment in the Middle East plays out.
So now, I want to bring it back to the local and talk about Trump's first 100 days in office. He's promised a lot of things. What can the ordinary American look at and say, within 100 days, my life has changed?
Yeah, that's a good question, right? It's not so easy, right? It's only 100 days. Like I said, I think the main thing for the average worker will be the announcement on the tax. So I think even though some of it won't be legal, I think that there'll be some executive orders made to allow certain taxes to be held back, so people can go ahead and so the IRS can retroactively do things. So I think from a tax point of view, you'll see some retroactive tax breaks given to some people. And then, like I said, there's no requirements for electric cars and whatnot. But I do think that I think President Trump's going to work with trying to get the economy, keep getting inflation down. So
You talked about prices yesterday, something else touched on briefly today. That seems to be one of the big issues for a lot of average Americans. Is it possible for him to address that within his first 100 days, or is that a long-term thing?
look, President Trump is pretty good at I don't say intimidating people, but getting the message across. Remember when he was elected the first time, he had, for instance, he had pointed out to Boeing, hey, listen, if you don't do the following things in terms of, reducing the prices, we're not going to buy airplanes from you. So I think there are things that President Trump can do to, should we say, speak to the business community and say, hey, listen, you need to find a way to bring prices down. If not, just like taxes and levies, those can be also utilized. So I do think that the bully pulpit will be used to some degree, and hopefully, but it's going to take some time. You just can't, take.
But he keeps talking about tariffs. Is that not something that could have a counteractive or counterproductive, rather, when you're talking of how it could impact?
But tariffs cut both ways, right? Because if we want to do business with certain countries and we don't have access to their market, then so the way I look at that is there has to be some parity between the markets. For instance, there was issues with the French where they said, well, listen, if you guys are going to do the following, we're going to tax your wine. But of course, the French came back. And it goes both ways. So I think the key is really finding a happy balance. And I think, like I said, I think what you see in public and what's discussed in private are two different things. So.
All right. Now, as we close, of course, what is your takeaway from the events that happened today? And of course, what can Americans expect after 4 years of President Donald Trump?
I think it's great to see both Republicans and Democrats come together. You get President Obama come in, Bill Clinton, George Bush, the former vice presidents. Joe Biden rides in the limousine with President Trump to the Capitol. So even though there are definitely differences, we know how to be kind of be civilized to each other. And I think, over the last, let's say, since Bill Clinton's been in office, politics has gotten very visceral and very personal.
Yes.
And hopefully some of that personal attack will stop. And I think anything can be accomplished is there can be some more, let's say, dignity brought to politics. So hopefully, now with social media today, it's probably even more difficult to do that. But hopefully there'll be more tempered behavior towards each other.
So I know I did say last question, but I'm really curious of the peaceful transfer. This was very swift, very peaceful. What can Africa learn from that?
Look, power is they say power is the ultimate aphrodisiac, right?
Yes.
So it's difficult, but I think as has been said by President Obama, right? You want to build strong institutions, not strong individuals. And I think that, hopefully this is a good example. And I think with technology, transparency, and whatnot, this would probably reduce the chance of corruption and elections. So I think, and like I said, being able to pass the torch, there's benefits. And maybe there'll be sometime in the future, there'll be punishments for those who stay too long. I'm not sure what the answer is, but, if you look at Asia, they've had 60 years out of Africa in terms of, they seem to have relatively peaceful transition. So I think there's hope for the continent.
Well, Joe, thank you so much for taking time out to really be with us. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to having you in other programs. I really hope you get to come back. Ladies and gentlemen, you just heard there from Joe Slavic. He was our expert there. He was speaking more about President Donald Trump's next 4 years in office. Now, of course, you learned more about his policies, but you want to learn more about the man himself, President Donald J. Trump, the 47th President of the United States. So we want to head to a profile of President Donald Trump, where VOA chronicles more about the president himself, his lifelong career, and of course, it touches on how he ended up being the 47th leader in the United States. Let's head over to that.
Donald Trump says he was reelected with a, quote, unprecedented and powerful mandate from American voters.
I want to thank the American people for the extraordinary honor of being elected your 47th president and your 45th president. And to every citizen, I will fight for you, for your family, and your future. Every single day, I will be fighting for you, and with every breath in my body, I will not rest until we have delivered the strong, safe, and prosperous America that our children deserve and that you deserve.
Trump's return to power is part of his unwillingness to take no for an answer.
I think what you see is somebody who has incredible confidence in his own intuition.
Russ Buettner and Suzanne Craig are New York Times investigative reporters and co-authors of Lucky Loser, an unflattering look at how Trump fashioned himself into a self-made billionaire.
He has not, since the early 80s, really trusted people who have subject area expertise in almost anything. He will always overrule them to make things the way he wants them to turn out.
Trump's buildings were emblazoned with his name in large gold letters, a brash display of his ambition and self-promotion.
He was worth $200 million when he would talk. It was an interview he gave to the New York Times, and that grew to $1 billion when he was talking to 60 Minutes a decade later.
Trump excelled at drawing attention and cultivating a brand for himself as a deal maker. He made millions licensing his name. But behind the success were troubles. His companies filed for bankruptcy 6 times. His casinos lost money and were shuttered. Trump rebounded with his TV show The Apprentice, which led to his biggest role yet.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am officially running for President of the United States, and we are going to make our country great again.
Unapologetic and unfiltered, Trump was a polarizing nationalist candidate.
When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people.
As president, Trump appointed 3 Supreme Court justices who helped overturn federal abortion rights.
U.S. death toll now above 150,000.
In early 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic tested Trump. He fast-tracked the development of life-saving vaccines, but he also appeared to suggest that scientists study injecting bleach to kill the virus. With over 9 million Americans infected and a death toll exceeding 230,000, voters that November chose Joe Biden as their next president. Out of office, Trump faced multiple criminal indictments and is the first former president to be a convicted felon. And yet, he has never been more popular, surviving 2 assassination attempts this year has only strengthened the bond between him and his supporters.
God has a plan for Trump, and he absolutely was spared for some purpose and reason, and hopefully it's to become the 47th president.
American politics has never been the same since Donald Trump entered the field, and the man who once co-authored The Art of the Comeback is returning to power after engineering one of the biggest in American history. Tina Trin, VOA News, New York.
Well, that was a profile of President Donald Trump, who is now officially the 47th president of the United States. So he was, prior to this, the 45th, and now he has taken over his second term in office. But with that in mind, we also want to go to a package of his vice president, J.D. Vance. He is one of the youngest vice presidents in U.S. history, not the youngest, but of course, one of the youngest at 40 years old, J.D. Vance. Let's head over to that package, and then we'll come back and hear more from our reporters who are here in Washington.
J.D. Vance, minutes after he was elected as Vice President of the United States.
After the greatest political comeback in American history, we're going to lead the greatest economic comeback in American history under Donald Trump's leadership.
This stage is a long way from the back roads of Middle America. Jackson, Kentucky isn't where Vance was born, but this is where he calls home.
Now, when I proposed to my wife, I said, honey, I come with $120,000 worth of law school debt and a cemetery plot on a mountainside in eastern Kentucky.
Grandmother Bonnie Blanton Vance.
Vance's grandmother was known as Mama.
He always came down here with Mama, and she would bring him to the mountains to let him see what mountain life was, and he evidently liked it.
Vance was born here in Middletown, Ohio, and raised mainly by his strict mama, who cursed a lot and kept 19 loaded handguns in the house. With his stepfather's last name, J.D. Hamill won his first election, ironically as vice president of his Middletown high school class. He served as a Marine and then graduated summa cum laude from The Ohio State University. Then on to Yale, where Vance clicked with fellow law student Usha Chilakore, his future wife. Vance became known nationally through his 2016 bestseller-turned-movie, Hillbilly Elegy, about working-class America. It stars Glenn Close as a blunt mama to a young J.D.
But you got to decide. You want to be somebody or not.
With the support of then-former President Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, the boy from Ohio who loves Kentucky, was elected as a senator from Ohio. And a quick 2 years later,
J.D. Vance to be the next Vice President of the United States.
Trump chose Vance as his running mate. But he got off to a rough start, having previously called Trump, quote, reprehensible, and having claimed to be, quote, a never Trump guy. Now, Vance's policies reflect Trump's. And when asked, did the former president lose the 2020 election?
No. I think there are serious problems in 2020. So did Donald Trump lose the election? Not by the words that I would use.
Vance is hawkish on China and East Asia, opposes military aid to Ukraine, and...
Could you tell me how you handled it?
In answer to my question on the Israel-Hamas conflict,
Kamala Harris, on the one hand, says that she really cares about civilian casualties, and yet she refuses to give Israel the weapons that allow them to minimize civilian casualties. Yeah, absolutely.
Vance, at age 40, will be the third youngest vice president in history.
Let's get to work and make it happen.
Carolyn Prasuti, VOA News.
And that was VOA's Carolyn Prasuti, chronicling the life and journey, of course, of Vice President J.D. Vance, one of the youngest vice presidents in U.S. history. And now I'm going to head over to my colleague, Jackson Vunganyi, who's also out here in Washington, who's going to be expounding more on the proceedings of what's happening out here in Washington. Jackson, welcome, man. How you doing?
Building, it's much warmer than outside. We have record low temperatures in Washington, D.C., which explains for our viewers who are wondering why the inauguration and the swearing-in ceremonies did not take place outside of the Capitol, as is tradition. And so we were outside, earlier this morning, and it was freezing. So we're in a way lucky that we got to get a place to be warm and, bring you the news from the confines of our warm spaces. But yeah, it's a day in history, historical day. And just based on the people that we saw attending, President Donald Trump's inauguration, just seeing all the living U.S. presidents sitting together, even if knowing the divisiveness in the politics in this country, as you are asking your guest Joseph earlier about what Africa can learn from this moment, I think that right there is something that we can learn. Respecting the ideals of transitional power from one president to the next, without having to fight or shed blood, as we've seen over the years around the continent.
Let me hold you there for a second, Jackson, because we also have Roger, who's joining us from the White House. So just hold on for a second, and then I'm coming back to you shortly. Roger, welcome, man. How you doing?
Hey, Mike. How you doing?
I'm good, man. So yeah, out here in the White House, which is the building that Trump is going to be occupying very soon. Talk to me about that. What are you seeing, man?
Mike, first of all, let me say I appreciate you cutting on Jackson coming into me, because it's freezing outside, as you just said. It's cold out here. And I hope Jackson doesn't mind that you had to cut him off.
I'm sure he's good.
Let me tell you, Mike, this is just a great place to be at this time, because as you know, this is where historically on this day, on January 20th, that's when the president is actually, today marks his inauguration day. And of course, as you mentioned it earlier, as the 47th president of the United States, the atmosphere, I can tell you, Mike, around here, outside of the perimeter where I am, it's very electric. It's great. People are really celebrating. People outside of this area, as you can tell right behind me, most of these places are really barricaded. You can tell right behind me, there's Secret Service, and there's the Vice President office right behind me. There's security. I can show you around most cars if my camera's going to let me. But you see security patrolling every area of this place since this morning. We've been pretty much covering this place. The saddest thing, as you also already know, that march is not going to happen as it happens in some other inauguration, right? It's a tradition usually that people come here to see that. And so many of who I spoke with, they're very, very deceived that they are not going to experience that, given that some of them are coming from different states. Some of them are coming from outside of the United States as well to witness that march. And let me remind that this has started since President Jimmy Carter, who died a few weeks ago. Carter's walked in, that was in 1977 to be more precise. This act has become a defining moment, Mike, of the inaugural day, showing the president's willingness to step out among citizens, even, amidst tight security, as we know that this inauguration is experiencing.
It's about, like you mentioned, it's freezing. Temperatures are record low, which is one of the reasons, of course, as to why the plans
changed. This is part of the reason, Mike. Yeah, this is part of the reason. But I'm so surprised to see. I'm telling you, Mike, despite the freezing weather outside, people are still trying to live this historical moment.
Are there still large crowds out there?
Oh yeah. Outside of here, there's crowd. I mean, I was pretty much lucky that Secret Service got me this close to the White House, because outside, and I'm gonna turn this way so you can see far back there. That's the security. That's the Secret Service right there. That's the security, the Secret Service entrance. From there, outside past that security Secret Service area, then there's people. There are a lot of people out there that cannot access, but they still want to stay around, see some images of the president, because nobody knows where the president's going to come, what gate is going to come in, because the Secret Service doesn't want to give that information, of course.
Thank you so much for being with us. Please do stay warm out there, and then we're going to come back to you at a later stage, yeah?
Thank you so much, Mike.
Appreciate it. Now, let me go back to Jackson, and then I'm going to be joined by Anthony Labruto, who's also here in Washington. Jackson, I'm going to come back to you, brother. Talk to me, man. We're hearing about the record crowds. We're hearing about large numbers of people. Yesterday, we saw President Trump addressing thousands at Capital One Arena. He's doing the same again today. What are you hearing from people, man?
Well, a lot of excitement, Mike. First of all, let me just say I have to give it up to Roger for withstanding that cold. Even though he's banded in, you can tell it's really cold out there. And shout out to him and to everybody who is braving this cold outside to attend this inauguration, even though it was not held outside, like I said, because of the frigid temperatures. This is I think the fourth time in history that this event has had to be moved indoors because of the cold temperatures. And so for people who are braving it to still stay outside on the National Mall, we know that the procession, usually the procession where the president walks from the Capitol all the way to the White House in that symbolic movement, has also been canceled due to the cold temperatures. Over 250,000 tickets had been sold to people who were supposed to attend the live event. A lot of disappointment, of course, but
I just
that's
need
nature.
to walk through our audience through what we're seeing here on some visuals.
Yeah.
We're seeing, of course, President Donald Trump walking away there. He just bid farewell to the outgoing President Joe Biden. President Trump officially now the new President of the United States of America. We're seeing him there, stand there with First Lady Melania Trump. Of course, right next to him is Vice President J.D. Vance and his wife. So that's what we're looking at. Let's just head over to that clip shortly, and then we'll come back and expound more with Jackson. As you are seeing there, this is the dawn of the new era that President Donald Trump was referring to yesterday when he was addressing thousands of supporters in Capital One Arena. This is now official. He bid farewell to the outgoing President Joe Biden. Let's get back to Jackson. Jackson, are you still there?
Yes, sir. I'm here with you, Mike.
Right. I just had to cut you off for a second so the people could see what's going on here in Washington.
Absolutely. People deserve to see history in the making today. So yes.
Yes.
Feel free to cut away from me anytime.
But yes, please do continue with your trend and thought. We're talking more about what you're hearing from people.
Yes, again, there's an excitement, obviously, among Trump's base that, he will be able to enact some of the promises that he made and during the campaign season. A lot of the issues that he mentioned or talked about in his address, in his inaugural address, were really related to some of those issues, things like immigration, saying that he's going to declare an emergency at the southern border immediately, and that they will reinstate some of his policies from his first term policies, where immigrants who are coming in or illegal immigrants who are coming in, seeking asylum or other immigration benefits will have to stay in Mexico and be processed from there. He also talked about, his plan to deport, thousands or hundreds of illegal immigrants in the country. Whether that happens today or this week, we don't know yet, but that's something that has also been talked about a lot. He talked about how God saved his life in order to make America great again, in reference to that assassination attempt in Pennsylvania while he was on the campaign trail. He called today, January 20th, Liberation Day, the greatest, he said, the greatest and most consequential in our country's history. And so, obviously, for his supporters, they're very much excited. They're energized. This is something they've been working up to. This has been described as the greatest political comeback in American history, and what happens in the next 4 years really we'll see whether that will is able to live to those promises that he has made in the last 4 years. Remember, Trump started really campaigning in many ways as soon as he left office. He's continued campaigning, and he has been dominating the news cycle both on radio and TV and on social media. He's very popular on his Truth social media platform, where he's constantly I guess tweeting. We used to say tweeting as to say, but he's sending out messages to his supporters. So we'll see what happens in the next 4 years. There is both excitement, but also on the other hand, people don't know what is about to happen.
Thank you so much, Jackson, for joining us there, mate. We really appreciate it, man.
Thank you so much, Mike.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, of course, you heard there from Jackson Vunganyi, my colleague, who's here in Washington. Earlier on, you heard from Joe Slavic, who is who was our panelist expert, speaking more on President Trump's policy proposals. You also learned more about President Trump himself. But we want to hear more from you, the African audience. We had our correspondents in Kampala, Uganda, take to the streets. We also had our correspondents in Lilongwe, Malawi, take to the streets. So let's hear more about what Africans have to say about President Donald Trump's next term in office. Then when we come back, we'll head over to Anthony Labruto, who's also here in Washington.
It is a good process in that it gives them time to, let's say, time to petition in case there is an aggrieved party from the outcomes of the elections. And if it were to be done here in Uganda, it would be better in that we do not have to have political conflicts.
What Africans can learn is, first of all, time for the old regime to meet with the incoming regime, like we saw President Joe Biden met President Donald Trump in the White House. They have a discussion on the transition budgets, transition ceremony, and all that stuff. So it helps a lot in terms of the timing. For me, I think that should be enough time that we can learn from them to make that transition. Also shouldn't be too long, because it brings in that kind of anxiety. People want to see their new president in place already.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are hearing there from Ugandans in the capital, Kampala, speaking more about what Uganda could learn. But we're also seeing some activity there here in Washington. So before we head over to Anthony Labruto, let's head back to our live stream. We see President Donald Trump is about to address, and of course, other U.S. lawmakers and previous presidents. So let's head over to that stream, and then we're going to come back and speak with Anthony Labruto shortly.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are here as witnesses to President Trump's triumphant return to the White House. Right now, already this morning, you can feel it around the country. We certainly felt it here in the city. America is coming together and roaring back again, and it begins today, as the president just told us. I know we'd all rather be gathered together on the National Mall with hundreds of thousands of our closest friends, but our disappointment is well overcome with our excitement for the future that we feel today. We have the chance to make the next 4 years the most consequential period in our nation's history. And as Speaker of the House, it is my great pleasure, my great honor, to introduce to you the man who will lead us to this new golden age, the decisive winner of the Electoral College and the popular vote, the 45th and the 47th, and the greatest president of our lifetimes, Donald J. Trump.
Well, thank you all so much for being here. And was that a hell of a speech or what? That was, man. That was a good way to start it off. You know, I didn't know exactly what the president would put in that speech, and I hoped to myself that he wasn't going to hold back. And, sir, you didn't hold back. That was a hell of a way to start the next 4 years. But I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, and I know I speak for the president and for all of us, thank you, thank you, thank you for making this possible. We love you. We wouldn't be here without you, and we're going to make America great again together for the next 4 years. And the last thing I'll say is, you know, having stood outside for about 5 minutes to wave goodbye to the Bidens, thank God we moved that thing indoors because it was a beautiful ceremony and it was cold as hell outside. So, sir, the 45th and 47th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump.
No, he's right. I said, oh, look at this beautiful sunny day. We blew it. And then I went outside and we were freezing. You would have been very unhappy. The sun was very deceptive, I will tell you. It is cold out. And I'm sort of saying, you know, that was so beautiful today. Maybe they should do it there every 4 years. Does that make sense? I don't know. Because, you know, the outdoor thing is really good, but it gets a little cold around this time of the year, as some people have noticed. And a lot of times they suffer through it. There was no suffering in that room. It was 72 degrees. It was perfect with the best acoustics I think I've ever heard in a room. This is not so bad either. But I just want to say, you're a younger, far more beautiful audience that I just spoke to. And I want to keep it off the record. I want to keep that off the record because I don't want to have all those big shots up there. I don't want to think you're more powerful than them. You look better than them, and I love you. Now, we just had a great time. We just had a great day. This was amazing. You know, when you think we took a journey, I mentioned in the speech, a lot of people said that was not a journey that was possible, and it was indeed possible. I didn't really know too much about what they were saying when they said that, but A lot of people felt it. And we hooked up with JD very early. I watched JD over a period of time. I endorsed him in Ohio. He was a great senator and very, very smart. The only one smarter than him was his wife. That was, I would have chosen her, but somehow the line of succession didn't work that way, right? But now she's great and he's great. This is a great, beautiful couple and unbelievable career. I just said to him, you are very upwardly mobile, because he hasn't been doing it that long, but he picked it up so quickly. Remember, the first week was a little bit like the fake news was hitting him really hard. And I said, oh, this may be tough, but after that, it was smooth sailing for him. He took on everybody. He took on the meanest. I don't want to use the word corrupt because we're into a new system, so let's wait till the corruption begins, because it will. But he took on some pretty mean people, and he handled it well. I want to also congratulate Mike Johnson for the job that he's doing. Steve, we gave him a majority of almost nothing. And then I said, to make it tougher on him, let me take 2 or 3 of the people, right? I said, he'll only have to suffer with that for about 3 months. How are they doing, by the way? Are they, is that moving along? Totally unified. I said, do you mind if I take this one, that one, and a couple of others? He didn't mind. He can handle it. No, he's a man that's liked by everybody. I've never met a man like this. You've got how many is it, 219 or 220 or something? 220. And of the 220, 219 really like him. I noticed he got 1 negative vote once about 2 weeks ago. But I think even 220 like him, if you want to know the truth. And that's very unusual. I know a lot of nice guys in Congress, and they have 35 people that hate him. So if you have 35 people that hate you and you only have 1 or 2 or 3 votes, you'll have 5, I think. But that's going to be like, the good news is when we get to that 5 number, it's going to feel like a massive majority. You could be really nasty to a couple of them at least. So it's going to feel like hitting your head on the wall and stopping. It feels so good to stop. But he's done a fantastic job. And Steve Scalise he's our hero because, I was with him. You talk about being shot. I was with him. He got some bad ones, and his incredible wife, and she really loves him. You never know about that. I've been with other people. They were doing poorly, and the wife is like looking at a watch. She can't get out of the hospital fast enough. How's he doing? Oh, I don't know. He's all right. That woman was a mess. She was crying and crying. No, they're going to take him. They're going to take him. I told Steve when he finally woke up, it was a while too. The doctor told me it was the most blood they've ever transfused in any patient. They've never done anything like it. And here he is, the picture of strength, right? And he's been a great friend of mine, right? With a family, because of a family. And what a job you did. It worked out pretty much better than we even thought, right? And I did have a couple of things, to say that were extremely controversial. And between JD and Melania and anybody else that heard, please, sir, it's such a beautiful unifying speech. Please, sir, don't say these things. I said, I'm telling you, it's going to play great. They say, you're right. For this group of people, it's going to play great. You're the only ones I hurt by not, but we had some beauties, didn't we, Melania? She said, sir, calls me sir when she's angry. No, I'm only kidding. I better say I'm only kidding, or the press is going to pick that one up loud and clear. No, but she said, no, I think it would be terrible. It's such a nice speech. I think it's, it all depends on your delivery. How was the delivery? Was it good? But she said it's such a beautiful speech. You can't put things in there that you were going to put in. And I was going to talk about the J6 hostages, but you'll be happy because, it's action, not words that count. And you're going to see a lot of action on the J6 hostages. See a lot of action. And I was going to talk about the things that Joe did today with the pardons of people that were very, very guilty of very bad crimes, like the Unselect Committee of Political Thugs, where they literally, I mean, what they did is they destroyed and deleted all of the information, all of the hearings, practically not a thing left. They deleted all the information on Nancy Pelosi having turned down the offer of 10,000 soldiers. You wouldn't have needed 10,000. You could have had 500 and it would have stopped. Because we may have had a million people that day, the people that were there. You don't see any photographs, but we have a lot of great photos. But you don't see those photographs. They don't put them in. They show the people at the Capitol. But I was talking about that. I was going to talk about that. They said, please don't bring that up right now. You can bring it up tomorrow. I said, how about now in front of the I'll bring it up right now. You know, this little time delay is good because we're getting great reviews on the speech. Now watch. They'll take the speech and say, I didn't like it because he left there and he talked to people. But we're giving you a little more information than we gave upstairs. But no, they pardoned a lot of people. They pardoned, before we even get to today, they pardoned, 33 murderers, absolute murderers, the worst murderers. You know, when you get the death sentence in the United States, you have to be bad because they don't give it much. And he pardoned almost everybody having a death sentence. And if you went through the crimes that were committed, you wouldn't even believe them. The level of violence, the people that were killed, the innocence of people that were killed and children killed by these people. And he pardoned them for whatever reason. He spared them, but they didn't spare the people that they killed. And, you know, who knows what happens in the future. It's one of the worst because a lot of times they let them out early after that. You know, they say you're going to be in for life, but then all of a sudden they get let out for good behavior and then they go on a rampage. You know, it's one of those little things, right? But I was going to talk about that. But I was really going to talk about the level of, you know, what's going on. Why are we doing this? Why are we trying to help a guy like Milley? Why are we doing Milley? He was pardoned. What he said, terrible what he said. Why are we helping some of the people? Why are we helping Liz Cheney? I mean, Liz Cheney is a disaster. She's a crying lunatic and crying Adam Kinzinger. He's a super crying. I never saw the guy not crying. He's always crying. I looked at him. I remember years ago, he was actually on my side. And then one day, you know, when you don't want to kill people in wars, they turn against you. Liz Cheney hated the concept of not going to war with everybody. Let's kill everybody. Let's spend a lot of money on military equipment, you know, where her father works, right? And, but what she did was incredible. Think of it. They destroyed and deleted all of that information that went on for almost 2 years against Trump. And the reason they did, because it was all false, like the person that said, I tried to strangle a Secret Service agent. That's one of the toughest human beings I think I've ever seen. I actually had a friend saying, please don't change that, sir. You are the coolest sucker in history. Remember, she said, I put my hands around his neck because he wouldn't go to the Capitol. Made up fiction. And I was rebuffed. And the guy on the right is a massive weightlifter, probably stronger than me. Do you think he's stronger than me, honey? You know who I'm talking about. Possibly stronger than me. Slightly younger than me, like, I won't say how many years because I don't want to talk about that, but a lot of years. But I had a friend that said, why are you disputing that story? That's the coolest story I've ever heard. That I would attack a karate champion, get slightly rebuffed, and then throw my arms around a guy with a neck about this big. Even though there are bars, you know, there are bars, you can't really do that anyway. So I wanted to talk about that. But all of that stuff got deleted. And the reason it got deleted is they were all caught in lies. You know, Secret Service testified and they said it didn't happen. Actually, the two guys were very embarrassed. They're suffering because their friends are saying, did Trump really do that to you? But they gained a whole new respect for me. But it was just make-believe stuff. And there were a lot of make-believe stories made up. So rather than suffer the wrath, like the story with Nancy Pelosi, I offered her 10,000 soldiers. She knows it. She admitted it on tape that her daughter made. She's a videographer or whatever you call her, which I'm glad she is. Oh, she can't be in good stead with Nancy. But Nancy said it was my responsibility as she's leaving the Capitol. She said it was, and it was. She's in charge of security at the Capitol. But I offered them up to 10,000 soldiers, even more. One time I said more, as many as you need, but you needed 400 or 500. If 4 or 5, you 10,000, that would be more than the number of people there by lot. But we offered her 10,000. Think of it, 10,000 soldiers. In other words, J6 wouldn't be J6. There would have been no J6. But she rebuffed them. She didn't like it. No, she didn't like it. Maybe she wanted that to happen, but she's guilty as hell. And now we would have to go through the process because they destroyed all evidence. They deleted everything. There's virtually nothing left. The other fake story and so many other fake stories. And many people came out on our side, and those people now would got to find them. There's nothing left. So that's a criminal offense. If that were a civil case, it would be a criminal offense. If that happened civilly where you did that, it would be a criminal offense. So I decided I'm not going to make this speech complicated. I'm going to make it beautiful. I'm going to make it a unifying speech. And then when they said we have a group of people that are serious Trump fans, I said, this is the time to tell those stories. He knows. So, but seriously, I'd like to, I think it was a tremendous success. I think we're very lucky we put it inside because it is really cold. We just went to the helicopter out of respect to something that's taken place for a long time. I guess it's as old as helicopters. You used to get into a stagecoach, now you get into a helicopter. Times change. But it's pretty old custom. And it's a beautiful custom, actually. It's a beautiful custom. I wish we could have had a better relationship. I wish we could have had a better relationship between Republicans and Democrats. I was with Senator Schumer. I said, Chuck, I think it's time we all start getting along a little bit because it doesn't make sense. I mean, we literally never get a Democrat vote. They never get a Republican vote, almost. And although there is a bill coming up very shortly that we have a lot of Democrat votes, right? It's going to be a very beautiful bill. We're going to have a deciding, I would say, within a week or so, I think. And it's going to be a very good bill. You all know what I'm talking about. So I just want to thank you all for being here. You have been our fans from day one. All these people all over. You've been our fans. This has been there's never been anything like it. There's never been anything like it. This has been a movement like no movement ever in history for probably any country, let alone this country. You know, if somebody's running for president, and if they go out and they announce they're going to Arizona, they're going to Nevada, they're going to someplace, if you have 200 or 300 people, that would be standard. Ronald Reagan would go out. I mean, outside of the last couple of days where people get a little excited, but even then you have a couple of thousand people. But if you're going to go someplace, any place, any one of the swing states, any one of the other states, I mean, how about the non-swing states? We won Alabama by 48 points. We won Tennessee by massive numbers. Wyoming, we won by numbers that are, nobody's ever seen numbers like that. And, you know, places like California, we did great, but when they send out like 38 million ballots, nobody knows where the hell they're sending them, and then they come pouring back, the whole thing. You know, they passed a law in California that if you work in an election bureau and if you so much as ask for a voter ID, if you say, sir, ma'am, could I please look at your voter ID? They have the right to put you in jail. You're a criminal. Can you believe that? There's only one reason that happens. They want to cheat. So they had it where voter ID wasn't accepted. But now if you even ask for it, this is seriously a bill that was just signed, passed in their legislature, and it was signed. And I think when we get things cleaned up and we get back to a little bit of normalcy, I'm going to ask the speaker to really get involved, because I think we would have won the state of California, because, you know, if you look at my numbers with Hispanic, we're at 56%. And we were winning. We won the Texas border that had never been won. As the governor said, he's doing a good job, the governor, by the way, of Texas. But as the governor said, it hasn't, oh, did I get lucky? I get lucky. Supposing I said, you know, he's not here, but the governor of Texas has done a terrible job. Wow, look at you. You mean we couldn't get you up in the front row? I tell you. Supposing I said, JD, the governor of Texas, he's not doing his job. You heard what I said. See, I didn't know you were there. I said he's doing a great job. He's doing a phenomenal job. But now you're going to have a partner that's going to work with you because you didn't have, not only didn't he have a partner, he had people selling the wall, right? We have a fence structure that we worked on, the governor worked on with me. And I didn't love it, to be honest with you. I wanted a nice precast concrete, 40, 50 feet high, like a beautiful, could have been a T-shape, Y-shape. I love construction. I wanted that sucker to go up maybe 50, 60 feet. It would have looked beautiful, a nice Y shape. And they said, the problem is, sir, they climbed that like a rabbit. I said, what do you mean? No way. And they brought some of these guys out. They climbed it like, and the other thing is you hit it with acid and the thing will disintegrate. They have things for concrete. So they needed very hardened steel, very special steel. And then they needed 7,000-pound concrete inside that steel, inside that steel. And then they have a rebar that's the toughest steel made. Very hard to cut. So this is why very little is cut. I mean, it's right. And then they put a anti-climb panel on top. I hated it. I said, it's so unattractive. And I said, why would that work? I don't believe it works. And I went to watch the Border Patrol, gave a display. We had actually two sets of climbers. The guys that climb up walls with drugs on their back, I mean, they got like 60, 70 pounds of drug and they go as fast as you can walk. They go bip, bip, bip. Or we have Mount Everest type climbers. And honestly, the drug guys were much better. I couldn't believe it. The drug guys blew them away, right? But it's true, the anti-climb panel, they couldn't get around it. They just couldn't. You didn't have it. So sometimes you sacrifice beauty for efficiency. And we did. So we built this wall, and we built over 500 miles of wall. That's why we had such good numbers. The famous chart that came down, very thankfully, the chart that came down on my right, Governor, had I not looked over there, I'm not speaking right now. You might be speaking here. You want to know the truth? You, JD, and we got a lot of great people in this party, but I got very lucky, but we had the best numbers we've ever had. But I bought, what happens is when you fill it up, it's like water. You fill it up. Now we have 571 miles of wall. And they would always say, when we renovated a wall, so there'd be like a piece of plywood sitting there for 60 years, or a 2x4 sitting for 60 years on the ground and rotting because, and they'll say, you didn't build a new wall. Here we're building 50 feet up in the air, 30 feet sections, 50-foot sections, all steel, all concrete, all everything. And all, by the way, they don't even want me to say this, but what the hell, doesn't take that long time. They're all wired for all of the equipment. We put wires in everything so they can easily wire for all the different types of equipment. And if there's a doubt, we have a wire. Whenever we just look, you just find the wires all over the place up top, so we could just hook it up. We don't have to have wires on the outside, which wouldn't do too well, right? So anyway, so we built an extra 200 miles of wall, and the governor wanted to buy it. He tried to buy it, and they wouldn't sell it to him. He wanted to put it up himself. Could have been done in 3 to 4 weeks, 200 more miles, because when you do it now, they just keep going further out, further out, further out, getting around. So we did an extra 200 miles, and it was all bought. And they announced that they're not going to put it up. And that's when I realized they wanted open borders. And that's when I realized that people are going to come pouring through the wall like nobody's ever seen before. But you've seen it. A lot of you are here because of that. I made it my number one issue. They all said inflation was the number one issue. I said, I disagree. I think people coming into our country from prisons and from mental institutions is a bigger issue for the people that I know. And I made it my number one. I talked about inflation too, but how many times can you say that an apple has doubled in cost? I'd say it and I'd hit it hard, but then I go back to the fact that we don't want criminals coming into our country. We don't want the jails of every country in the world virtually being deposited into the United States. And that man had to suffer with it. And he did an unbelievable job. I'll tell you, he was a very popular governor, but now he's like an unbeatable governor because of your border policies. He was fantastic. And he really was. So. Governor Abbott is he's a great man, great leader. And but it did make him very more. Did you do it? You didn't do that for politics. You did it because you wanted to do the right thing. But I'll tell you, it sure as hell worked for politics too. It's self-preservation. That's right. But no, because the people are demanding it. The people of Texas are demanding it. The people are demanding it all over. So anyway, so we built it, and they wouldn't let us use it. They wouldn't let the governor use it, and other governors, they wouldn't let him use it. But he was the leader of the pack and did a great job. And then we heard about a month ago that not only wouldn't they let us use it, they were selling it. They were going to sell it for 5 cents on the dollar. Now, 5 cents on the dollar then, but today it would cost more than twice as much to build because we bought it like 6 years ago. And it was just sitting on the ground, and that does not do well for the whole thing. But it was just sitting on the ground, and I heard about it, and I called the governor, and I called a lot of people, your attorney general. And here's the story. They were going to buy it, and these are great business people. They were going to buy it for 5 cents on the dollar or less, and they were calling us up, we'll sell it to you for 200 cents on the dollar. In other words, it will cost you twice as much, so it's 200 cents on the dollar. I said, can somebody explain that to a judge? I mean, how corrupt is that? You'd think they'd say, maybe we'll sell it to you for 20 cents, 30 cents, but not 200 cents. So they were going to buy something for 5 cents, and they were going to sell it to us for a fortune. They were going to make it would be, they'd have it down that in Fortune magazine, they'd put it of the deal of the year, okay? You buy something like that. But it was so corrupt and so horrible. And when we told that to the administration, they didn't care. They just kept going forward. They couldn't care less. And they kept going forward. They knew that they were trying to sell it back to us. They would have sold it back to us. You would have ended up buying it. You would have paid probably 50, 60 cents. Who knows? But they were going to use it for scrap metal, but then they made a much better deal. They could just buy it and sell it to us for 15, 20 times what they paid. 20 times, think of it, like 20 times what they paid. And we wouldn't let it happen. And the governor with his attorney general, Ken Paxton, they made a fantastic, a good lawyer. He's pushed around pretty good by people, right? I said, you got a great attorney general. They should leave him alone. He was with me. But Ken and the governor went to court, and a judge actually became incensed and actually called for an investigation. How could a thing like this happen? So he stopped it. So we're waiting to put that wall up. And now that you have a new president, that wall will go up so fast. The governor will complain, sir. This is Greg Abbott, sir. Please, the wall is going up too fast. Please don't do that. You know the story about winning. No, we're going to win too much. We're winning too much. Please stop. People always love that one. We'll do this with the wall. Governor Abbott calls, sir, the wall is going up too fast. We can't take it. We just can't take it. No, I think you'll be very happy if the wall goes up too fast, right? But we'll get that done. We'll work with you on that. But it was a great decision by a great Texas judge, right? And it was beautiful, beautiful to watch. We stopped them right in their track. I mean, they were literally loading this stuff onto trucks. It was terrible. Honestly, it was terrible. And he wouldn't take it. So I'm so glad I mentioned that they have a really good governor in Texas. And I swear, I didn't know he was here. I swear to you, it sounds like a setup. I didn't know you would end. Did I get lucky? I said the right thing. Because there have been moments when I wasn't so happy with him, you know? But not too many, I can tell you that. So anyway, it's good to see you too, Governor. Great. But I just want to thank everybody. You've been incredible. I recognize so many of you. It's so crazy. But this has been a long journey. This was a journey that started in 2015, probably started 20 years before that. We used to say, you're going to run for president? You're going to run? And I always said, no, I don't want. And then one day I said, let's give it a shot. And what I talked about then was the border too. I think it probably was the number one issue for me. Back in 2015, 2016, I talked about the border. And now I talked about the border, but this border is much worse. We fixed the border. It was totally fixed. There was nothing to talk about. 2020, by the way, that election was totally rigged, but that's okay. It was a rigged election. You know, the only thing good about it, it showed how bad they are, showed how incompetent, and frankly, historically, this is a much bigger event. If that would have gone like it should have, the bad thing about it is some bad things happened, like a lot of people in our country that wouldn't be in our country right now. So you know, that's the bad part. But I will say that it started in 2015, and right from the beginning, we went to the top. The day one, they announced Trump, and Trump went to number one and stayed there for the whole primary. And then we took on Hillary. She didn't look too happy today. We took on Hillary. A very nice person, but we took on Hillary and we defeated Hillary. And then we did much better the second time in 2020. You know, we got millions more votes. We got millions, like 10, 12 million more votes than we did the first time. No president has ever gotten that many more votes. I got like 9 million more than anybody else had ever gotten. And they said we lost. And because of that, I said to Melania, what do you think? And she said, you want to do this again? And had we lost, and had I thought we lost, I wouldn't do it again, because that's like the ultimate poll, right? But I knew how well we did. And this time we made it too big to rig. It was so big. They tried like hell. But they tried to do it. And around 9:02, they gave up. Last time they did bad things. At this time, they just said, you know, I don't know if you saw Mr. Speaker in Washington. They had placards. They were all set to march. They thought it'd be closer. A gentleman asked me, a very respected gentleman asked me yesterday, how come the polls were so wrong? They showed you winning, but not in a landslide. I said, because people that are true Trumpers are so angry at the whole polling system and at the writers, the fake news, that they don't want to talk to anybody. So when you call somebody from Trump, who are you voting for? They say, it's none of your business. I'm not telling you. And that was probably 40% of the people they called. So they would discard that one, and they didn't show that. And then when the election happened, you know, the vote came, and it was much different, much higher than we're going to win. But they really thought, they couldn't believe the one man said, I mean, it was so much higher. We won all 7 swing states. We won the popular vote by millions of votes, which is hard for a Republican. I'll tell you who came through. The unions came through. The auto workers were great. The Teamsters were great. The firemen were great. I think almost every union was great. The only one that weren't great, although Sean was great, and the Teamsters, Sean O'Brien, the head of the Teamsters, was fantastic. But generally speaking, the head of the union was against Trump, but the union would be with us for like 80, 85%. Look what we did with the auto workers in Michigan. Look what we did with the Teamsters. The Teamsters were unbelievable. They were a solid Democrat vote, and they voted for Trump. So we had a great experience. Now we have to go to work and get it done, because we have to do something that's going to be great. We're going to turn our country around, and we're going to turn it around fast. And I think this was a better speech than the one I made upstairs, okay? I think this was better, JD. I think this was much better. And I got to see my friend. So, Governor, take care of yourself. You call me, we'll start working. You know what that means with him? He's going to be calling me tomorrow morning at about 6. And I said, how about next week? You call me and we're going to get it started real fast. We'll really help you a lot. You've done a fantastic job protecting something which it's not supposed to be for the states. And amazing job you've done. Thank you very much. And I want to thank everybody. And I have a first lady who's been incredible. She's been incredible. I shouldn't say this. I'm going to get hell when I say this, but her feet are absolutely aching. You know, those heels. And we thought we were leaving. We were going home. Sir, would you be able to go down and say hello to some of your other fans that are here? I said, oh, I didn't know that. Wow. Did you get to see pretty clearly the picture, I hope? Good. That's good. But because you wouldn't want to make the same speech again, right? But she said, darling, I love you so much, but my feet are killing me. I said, honey, let me just see how far it is. I asked the person. Oh, not that long, maybe 400 or 500 yards. That's 5 football fields. I said, can you make it? She said, we're going to make it no matter what. We're going to make it because we have to go. Right? Right? And then we went out to the helicopter though, just prior to this and said goodbye. And it's a custom. And the wind is blowing like crazy. And with the hat that she's wearing, she almost blew away. We almost lost off. She was being elevated off the ground. She almost blew away. No. So we all appreciate it because you've been a great first lady, a beautiful and a great first lady. And they love our first lady. You know, JD, whenever I make a speech, I see hundreds of times, we love our first lady. We love, and they do, and they should. She's great. So I just want to thank you. Thank you very much. I just want to thank everybody. And I felt that I said to JD, should we give him the A treatment, the B treatment, the C, the D, or the F? You know what the F is? Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here. Bye-bye. I gave you the A+ treatment. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you, Governor. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.